Remember earlier this year how Phil told you about the gag order DOJ forced on us? Well, as an update to that, I wanted to deliver this huge news. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Washington Post, Forbes, Axios, Fox, NPR, Reuters, Politico, and more just filed an amicus brief supporting our case against the ATF for their gag order against us. Our case concerns a Freedom of Information Act request on an illegal and unconstitutional surveillance program of gun owners by the ATF. Unfortunately, that's about all we can tell you because currently we're under a gag order from a judge that prevents us from informing our members and exercising our right to tell our audience this important news. It's clear that these organizations, often hostile to us at GOA, understand that this is a case where the court is clearly in the wrong. Specifically, in their brief, the news orgs say that if ATF's gag order against GOA is upheld, it would make a shambles of the First Amendment. 25 of the largest news organizations are united in their support of GOA in this case. The court should immediately rescind its gag order and allow us to talk about the case. Now, I can't tell you everything, but here's what I can tell you. It looks like the Department of Justice is still up to its old tricks targeting gun owners, no matter who's in the Oval Office. In our ongoing lawsuit against the NICS monitoring program, we just got another round of documents from the government. But that's not nearly enough. That's why we're filing a motion to force the government to release the 4,100 documents they said they're withholding. And the government has been stalling for a year and a half. Now, even though the court ordered the DOJ to give us hundreds of documents every month, the DOJ and the FBI have been slowly releasing them instead. Well, buckle up, because today we're getting the details of, and more shockingly, what the government has yet to turn over to us. Hi, I'm Ben, and you're watching the Minuteman Moment. So as we've said in the past, the Department of Justice and the FBI have a program set up for law enforcement to monitor law-abiding gun owners' ordinary firearm purchases through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or NICS. It's called the NICS Monitoring Program. We've done videos on this whole topic in great detail in the past, and I'll be sure to link them in the description below. But to summarize, the government surveillance program happens without the gun owner's knowledge, without any requirement of criminal conviction, and entirely without a warrant or even probable cause. And there's not any way for gun owners to appeal their surveillance. In this tyrannical surveillance program, any member of law enforcement can request monitoring of any citizen's gun purchases for up to 6 months at a time. Whenever a surveillance target purchases a firearm and has a NICS background check run, the law enforcement officer who requested NICS monitoring of the person will receive a notification, like a ping on their cell phone, notifying them that the person under surveillance has made a gun purchase. Talk about dystopian. Those placed under surveillance are never informed and have no power whatsoever to challenge the surveillance. There's no due process or warrant requirement to begin monitoring, and to make matters worse, this can be extended indefinitely. That means government agents can add anyone they want to this list for any reason they find acceptable. Unsurprisingly, this surveillance program has been rampantly abused, and we've reported on some shocking findings in the past. For example, a few months back, we caught the FBI using this system to help enforce anti-gun state laws by monitoring blue state gun owners who have never committed a crime. In fact, we previously reported a NICS monitoring example where a federal law enforcement officer tracked a U.S. citizen's firearm purchases for a suspected violation of California law. You heard that right. The feds helped Gavin Newsom's administration enforce some of the most ridiculous and unconstitutional laws in the country. Well, it's been a few months since our last video on this topic, and more records have been returned to us thanks to our FOIA lawsuit. I'll share a few examples from the documents, and interestingly, the bigger story may be in what the FBI hasn't turned over to us yet. Stay tuned for that. But first, in the FBI's latest batch of documents, we've received records of unlimited NICS monitoring of numerous persons who the government claims, and I quote, subscribe to anti-government ideology. What does this even mean? That's a pretty flimsy reason to place someone under endless surveillance for exercising their constitutional rights. It's also pretty subjective. Does this mean the person didn't like the Biden administration and therefore got placed under surveillance for questioning the government? Or maybe they were seen flying a "don't tread on me" flag. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Biden administration would have considered every one of us at GOA to have an anti-government ideology, and probably all of our members, like you, as well. But even if that were true, that's hardly a crime, and it hardly justifies monitoring Americans' exercise of constitutional rights. When the Biden administration targeted so-called militia violent extremists, that didn't surprise us, given the administration's anti-Second Amendment rhetoric. We're all extremists to the people who would love to see constitutional rights eliminated. After that, we found documents saying that the FBI got a call at their National Threat Operations Center to report potential identity theft, fraud, and concerning behavior. That individual was placed, you guessed it, under surveillance. This was just a random tip. What if the tip turned out not to be true? What if it was an angry ex? We'll never know. Just like this individual will never know they're being monitored and having no way to contest the surveillance. And finally, we found an example of the FBI monitoring the firearm purchases of a woman simply for being the girlfriend of someone who allegedly threatened a federal official. No allegations she was involved, just that she was the girlfriend. Now, we've heard of the sins of the father, But sins of the boyfriend? Come on. And you think that's bad? The mother of a prohibited person was also placed under surveillance as well. Of course, none of this is surprising. This is what happens when you let federal agents act outside the law. They act lawlessly. And when you don't require a warrant with probable cause, you essentially leave the fox to guard the henhouse, or in this case, you're letting the FBI police itself. It doesn't take a genius to predict how that's going to end, especially under the Biden administration. Keep in mind, none of these gun owner victims know that they were being surveilled, and therefore had no way to challenge their surveillance. But like I mentioned earlier, perhaps the bigger story is the information that the FBI hasn't turned over to us yet. So far, we've had 10 total productions of documents from the FBI respond to this FOIA request. And that amounted to a total of 297 pages of information, like the documents we just showed you. But currently, DOJ tells us that there's 4,100 pages being withheld. The reason for the withholding? Other agencies are consulting about the documents. The only thing is that some of these consultations have been going on for more than a year. In reality, this amounts to an indefinite delay. In other words, President Trump's FBI and Department of Justice are stonewalling our FOIA request. Why could that be? What don't they want us to see in these documents? What we've already been provided is already really bad. Does it only get worse? But as it stands, it seems like the Bondi Department of Justice is covering up Biden's abuses of gun owners. And the question we're asking is, why? Not only is the entire NICS monitoring process unconstitutional, the withholding of records that could expose more abuses of the program flies in the face of President Trump's agenda to drain the swamp. But just because DOJ bureaucrats are stalling us doesn't mean we're giving up. We're going to continue to fight on behalf of gun owners until every corner of the FBI's unconstitutional surveillance program sees the light, and until this lawless surveillance program is abolished forever. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with GOA's latest fights for your rights.